I've Googled why do we have butt hair countless times, and it's like, I don't know why. I know that information now, but every once in a while I'm like, maybe they did more research, and so I'll Google why do we have butt hair, and then it's just the same stuff over and over again.
Keep your innards safe.
It's
warm.
See, now I don't remember. So let's do it again. Why do we have butt hair? The presence of hair helps protect your hole from dust and debris, which keeps the area more clean. Hair helps with friction for when you're walking, but also, this is a comment on Reddit. So while ass hair may help with friction or maintaining a suitable microbiome for bacteria, the real answer is that our pre-human ancestors were much hairier, and somewhere along the way, random mutations in DNA led to populations with less hair. Then, eventually, the hair we have left hasn't been harmful enough to breed out, which would require either a random mutation for less or no hair to spread by either being more beneficial or just chance or extinction, the ultimate breeding out. So we have butt hair because our ancestors did.
Do you prefer a hairy partner or a hairless partner?
I don't really care.
I love a hairy person. I just always have. But I'm with a hairless man, and that's all right. And I mean, I'm like chest hair. My husband has no chest hair.
Oh,
but
interesting.
yeah. He just physically doesn't grow any, my husband. So I'm like, maybe it is like a biological thing.
I'm sure it is a genetic thing.
Yeah.
I've dated people who are very hairy and people who are not at all, and so I feel like I just don't even really think about it.
Yeah, it's not a deal breaker for me, and neither is it something where I'm like, ooh, that's something I really like. Yeah, I think I lean toward liking hairy bodies though, because sometimes when I see a hairy man, I'm like, ooh. Okay. Okay, Bigfoot.
Okay,
Get over
Bigfoot.
Get over here.
Well, speaking of objectifying romantic partners, welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by one spooky girl in a rock band and one cool assistant to an eccentric villain. A podcast about how idolizing goth cartoon characters may have turned me into Icarus flying too close to the hot girl sun. I'm Mackenna Goodrich.
I'm Dr. Aubrey Hoffer.
Happy spooky season! We have a couple of spooky series coming your way this October. Starting with my discussion of the hot goth girl in the media, specifically in cartoons, but we'll also have some live action examples, and what's with the trope and how it has personally impacted me. Mackenna.
We're out here in the Burr months, where we're recording this right now in September, and hoping that it'll come out in October, and
it will come out in October. It's not hoping. It will. I have a schedule.
Look, I'm not in charge of things like that. I show up. I get on the mic. Mackenna handles everything.
I told Aubrey she has to be funny today because I don't feel well. And so today Aubrey's job is do jokes and my job is read the things that I wrote 3 days ago.
I'm trying to turn on the charm today, guys. I think that sometimes I think I'm somebody, I think some people like me, and that's what I'm going to say.
Wait, what is the point you're making here?
I don't. I was going to say something about how I'm a bit of a divisive person, and I think, you know what, if you're listening to this podcast voluntarily, I'm probably your cup of tea.
Yeah, I also don't think you're a divisive person.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I think I feel like people either fuck with me heavy or they absolutely do not like me at all.
Oh.
I do not feel like there's a lot of people who are just like neutral about me.
That's so
fair.
And
I don't have a lot of evidence.
I'm neutral about you.
No, you fuck with me heavy. That's I have evidence against that.
I hate her so much. I'm doing this podcast as a form of self-harm.
Yes. You're who's riding whose coattails to the top?
I'm doing exposure therapy to someone who I don't like to make me a better person.
There are times where I've recently had to practice empathy for somebody who I find really fucking annoying. And it's so hard. It's so hard. Because every time they talk, I'm like, I just want you to stop talking so bad.
I find it really easy because I'm just an empathetic person, so.
Yeah, I've never have I claimed to be a good person. I find many people annoying, and I wish most people would stop talking when they start talking. And I'm a bit of a hater. I'm in this study right now about depression and irritability, and I could tell in the irritability screener that they were like, yeah, she fits here.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's fine. It's I'm a bit of a grouch. I'm a bit of a grump, I think.
I don't know.
I love being a hater.
See, and I don't.
Oh, I love being a hater. I love it so much. That's why I love that I found a partner who's also a hater, because we just sit there and be little haters together about everything. People are like, it's not fun to hate. It's not fun. Yeah, it is. It's really fun to hate when you're with people who are fun to hate with.
I guess I just don't. I don't know. I guess we did.
Shut up. You and I have had a little hater session.
Yeah. I just don't think it's my default mode.
It is not. I think you're a much more optimistic person in general than me, and I think you're much more open than me. I'm honest on surveys, because there's some surveys that I take where it's like, the question will be something like, when I get new information, it's easy for me to change my beliefs. I'm like, nope. I'm set in my ways.
I think I'm pretty open. I haven't taken the ocean personality thing in a while, but I'm pretty sure my openness is pretty high.
Let's pull it up.
Right now? No, I can't take a personality test right now.
We'll see if we need to pad out time at any point. We'll pull it up.
Okay.
If you want to hear us take it on another episode, email us at informedattraction@gmail.com.
I'm gonna go throw up in the bathroom.
All right.
I'll be back.
Well, I guess I'll pull it up. Mackenna is puking. I'm gonna take personality test. I haven't puked in a long time. I talked to a lot of people in my study who are afraid of vomiting, and I gotta say, a little bit of a bitch fear. I need to not be like that, apparently, because that's eroding my soul, making me feel bad when I'm a hater, ruins my day. So I have to practice empathy, I guess. Why? It's like, who has empathy for me? Who has empathy for me? Nobody. Nobody ever has empathy for me, yet I have to have empathy for other fucking idiots. I have empathy for me, and don't be annoying in my presence. But I guess that's too much to ask. It's 5 minutes. This personality test says... But if I click on this one, I'm gonna click on the one that's like the ad. Does anyone else, like, anytime I Google something, I gotta go like 5 answers down to get the real shit. Somebody find a reason for us to talk about the inshitification of Google. It's one of my favorite topics.
Okay, we're so back. I think that probably fixed me. I think that was the big one.
Okay, good. Take your little sippies of your Gatorade.
Yeah. I think that was the big one. That was like, I felt the sweat happen, and I was like, uh-oh. And then I was like, I think this might be it. Because I feel like, I don't know if anyone else experiences this. I feel like, and I'm leaving this in. Audience, I threw up in the middle of recording this. I feel like whenever I'm like stomach sick, there's like a moment where I get myself to a point where I can like eat and drink things again. And then there has to be one more vomit after that. And then it's over. And I feel like that is, as someone who has had lifelong stomach issues, like I do throw up pretty frequently. And, like, I feel like that is always my routine. It's like, there's a period of vomiting, there's a period where I get over it and I'm able to eat something, and then it's gone. Which is why I always eat like rice or ramen or something that's like cheap and easy, because it's like, it's not staying in this mortal coil.
Yeah, I'm more of a shitter than a puker.
See, and what if I told you I'm a little bit of both? I'm a hot girl.
You get the best of both worlds.
I'm a hot girl with tummy issues. Yeah, so this is kind of a hilarious episode to be recording today, because I'm going to talk a lot about men objectifying me and finding me sexually attractive, but not wanting to like see me as a full human being. And I look like trash today, but I was in fact like kind of a hot goth girl last night. And so just so everyone knows, despite, you can't see me, but despite the absolute goblin hosting this episode today, I'm speaking from a place of truth and honesty. I have my big fucking cock shirt on. It's streamer merch, and it's a chicken, and it says BFC on it for big fucking cock.
Hell yeah, brother.
I love it. Okay, anyway, that's just me describing my current appearance. But wow, we're so back. I have so much energy again. Okay, if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to the hot goth girl trope, some examples that I can provide at this time. We'll go into depth on more of these throughout this episode or the next episode. We have Sam Manson and Ember McLean from Danny Phantom, Shego from Kim Possible, sort of Vanessa from Phineas and Ferb, the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo, Gwen from Total Drama Island, and then some live action examples include Lydia Dietz, Wednesday Addams, Elvira, and Abby from NCIS.
And like the girls from The Craft.
Yes, I will say, The Craft, yes, for sure. I got The Craft and Charmed mixed up, and I was like, I am not talking about like Whimsigoth. I'm talking about goth. Well, and I can already hear the screams of McKenna. Some of those girls aren't goth, and I know that. And I hear you, and I'm gonna get into that and what the actual definition of goth is versus sort of the now internet understanding of the term goth, specifically like goth girls. Like,
well, yeah, because goth has no meaning now. I will say I'm a bit of a goth gatekeeper, where I'm like, are you really goth if you don't listen to like Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, the Shins? Like, I don't know, like the actual like
you
goth.
would consider the Shins goth?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, especially their early sound.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking like modern goth like people,
Totally.
like I don't know. I think I'm a little bit of a goth gatekeeper, just in the sense that I myself enjoy a bit of the goth music genre.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody who particularly looks like I'm in the goth aesthetic, although I have my moments. Well, I don't know. We could do a whole fucking thing about that, because I actually do think I embody a lot of goth ethos, but I just don't get ascribed that way because I'm fat.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because I think that like the actual goth subculture would reject that notion, but I agree with that in popular.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because the whole thing with the goth subculture is they're very inclusive and accepting. But like,
yes.
That's the thing, is you are very coded as goth. I think it's more that the like cultural conception of what goth is so far from what it actually was when it started that like people think it's this like goth is a very specific thing, and people think it's this other specific thing that it isn't actually, and it like that's what it is. Like, it's there's the two roads have diverged. And also, like, and I'm gonna get into this in my discussion of the goth subculture, like a lot of people argue that goth doesn't even really exist anymore, and that like it sort of peaked in the 80s and then like has sort of splintered off into all these different things, and there really isn't a goth subculture anymore.
That's what I think.
Yeah, and so I'm a little bit more flexible on the fact that I do think there are people who are still goth and identify as goth, but when we get to like into like goth club scene, that sort of has died out in a very real way.
I want to be. Do you know the video of all the goths and they're like doing the little dance party under the bridge?
Yes,
I love that. Are we going to talk about them?
No, we aren't. But
fake.
We can talk about them right now.
I just like them.
Yeah, I'm so sad that like it is in the same way that like there's not a lot of metal bars anymore. Like these are spaces that I would enjoy being in, and they just don't really exist.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like in my opinion, I think what it means to be like goth has been so diluted.
Yeah.
Where if somebody says goth, what they're really talking about is some modern conception of the term alt, which I think is way more nebulous and has way less meaning than goth does or did. Yeah. Or what it reminds me of is like do you remember the Tumblr aesthetic soft grunge?
Yes.
I feel like soft grunge epitomizes a lot of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, totally.
Where like soft grunge and grunge,
very different.
No relation to each other, except in maybe the vaguest like through line. But now, like if somebody talks about the grunge aesthetic, a lot of what they're evoking is the 2014 Tumblr soft grunge aesthetic.
Exactly. Like Aubrey said, goth is sort of a term that's lost all meaning, especially with the rise of the phrase big titty goth girlfriend, which basically means any girl with dark hair, tattoos, or piercings and big boobs. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what goth subculture actually is, but throughout the conversation, both today and next week, I'll be using it in the internet way, which sort of encompasses any sort of punk, alt, emo, or frankly like e-girl aesthetic. So we're talking about that like general alt aesthetic more so than we're actually talking about goth in the classical meaning, because of the relationship between these characters who sort of span the gamut of those types, but all get put under this like goth girlfriend label.
Well, and there's so many aesthetic sub-genres of goth that I think people are now identifying and like aestheticizing. Like whimsigoth was not a term that existed until fairly recently, but it characterizes this kind of sub-genre of goth aesthetic that was popular in 90s and 2000s media, or one I keep seeing come up now is like bubble grunge. And like I think it's interesting, right, to be able to put things into categories in that way. And also, it's like goth culture and goth subcultures develop because of like real people forming communities around these aesthetics and these shared beliefs or these shared interests, whereas now it's like a girl on Pinterest made a board and now we're all like, okay, cool, that's a thing now.
Yeah, exactly. And like all of that's fine. I like have a bent of my clothing style. I would say that my dressing style fits somewhere in like the 3 buckets of I do a lot of like frankly like athleisure street style, and then I have like a like e-girl bucket, and then I have a whimsigoth bucket, and those are sort of my 3 buckets of dressing in general.
Yeah, and mine is like academia coded, like dark academia coded, or like cottage core adjacent, or like romantic, whatever.
Totally. So to first define what a subculture is, subcultures are made up of individuals who came together to resolve social status problems by developing new values based on shared characteristics. Sociologist Paul Hodkinson argues a subculture should share 4 things: identity, commitment, autonomy, and consistent distinctiveness. And I think that those, specifically when we're talking about like identity, commitment, and consistent distinctiveness, that's why people get so precious about what a subculture actually is, like what goth actually is, what punk actually is, because part of what makes a subculture is a commitment to this specific identity, this consistently distinct thing, and that like that's what the subculture is. And so when something is not that but is being labeled as that, people are like very protective of what the subculture actually is.
And I think with some justification there, right?
Oh, totally.
Like I think that it's totally okay to be critical of people who are like, you're wearing that Nirvana shirt, can you even name 10 Nirvana songs?
Right.
And also, it is frustrating to be like, oh wow, like I'm part of this group that enjoys this thing, and then there's somebody who's like, I know one thing semi-related to this thing, yet I'm claiming status within your group, and you're like, hold on a second.
I think the thing that is important here is in that like initial definition of subcultures are made up of individuals who came together to resolve social status problems. And so that like inherently subcultures exist on the fringe outside of society, and like are like that's how they came together. And so then when you have like mainstream people misunderstanding it, adopting it, misusing it, like that's like this was in reaction to something that you are now claiming. And that's frustrating. That is frustrating. Yeah. I have to mention, since Aubrey brought up Nirvana, this was a conversation we recently had with dear recurring character Bryce DeLulo recently. Let me just get there. I'm just gonna read it.
In the meantime, I will say that this is something that my husband has dealt with a lot, being a man of color who did music, where he was part of this like indie underground scene. Like he was doing the Mac DeMarco thing before Mac DeMarco, and then he had to watch a bunch of white boys do what he was doing and then profit wildly off of it.
Yep.
And you know, that's also like a thing, right? Like I think in subcultures and groups like these, like a lot of interesting ideas come from like queer people, people of color, and then like white people from outside of the community will take pieces of that and then mainstreamify it.
Right. Exactly. I didn't know that Mac DeMarco is maybe a bad person.
There's allegations, but I also am like, a lot of that I have read has not been super substantiated.
Yeah, I just didn't know about any of it until I saw a skeet about it, because I stay on Blue Sky. We all know I stay on Blue Sky. Okay, so this is a conversation we recently had with dear friend Bryce DeLulo. Bryce got invited to an Oasis concert, and he was like, I don't want to spend all this money on this Oasis concert. I don't know who Oasis is. And I say, the not knowing Oasis is killing me though. I'm assuming you know Wonderwall. And he said, I thought Wonderwall was a Nirvana song. And I said, that sentence caused me actual psychic damage. And then Bryce said, this is the second time this month I thought Nirvana sang a song that they did not. They don't sing Teenage Dirtbag either. I said, I'm going to throw up on the ground. And
what did I say?
You weren't a part of this. You weren't a part of this. Bryce said, which does mean I don't know what any Nirvana songs actually sound like, because those were my 2. And Gray said, smells like Teen Spirit, dude. And I also said smells like Teen Spirit. And then Bryce said, sure, yeah, I thought that was Teenage Dirtbag. And then Greg goes on to like name other Nirvana songs. Names Come As You Are. Bryce says Come As You Are is Nirvana. I would have called that like Slipknot. And Greg goes, wow, that's not what Slipknot sounds like either. And then I said, I'm going to have a brain aneurysm. And then eventually Bryce goes and listens to Teen Spirit, Smells Like Teen Spirit, and he was like, that's Teen Spirit? That's crazy. I also would have guessed some random band. And I said Nirvana is a grunge band, so Wonderwall and Teenage Dirtbag would not be songs by them. And then Bryce said, I Manic Pixie Dream Girl, the concept of Kurt Cobain.
Which is just wild to me because Bryce is someone who engages with a lot of media, like watches a lot of movies, plays a lot of video games, yet there are parts of pop culture that I'm like, everyone basically knows this, right?
Right. And it was just like the trickle down of like Teenage Dirtbag and Wonderwall are Nirvana songs. Didn't know Smells Like Teen Spirit was a Nirvana song. Like thought it was a Slipknot song. Like thought Come As You Are was a Slipknot song. Like I was like
I'm gonna wear a Nirvana shirt, and then when somebody asks me what my favorite Nirvana song is, I'm gonna say Teenage Dirtbag.
I think it's even funnier if you say Wonderwall, honestly. So goth culture emerges from post-punk near the end of the 1970s in the United Kingdom and the United States, sort of independently. Like goth sort of rose in both countries sort of independently of each other. It really did start as a music subculture. The aesthetic is associated with bands like Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, The Cure, and Joy Division.
I love Bauhaus.
Bauhaus is great. So specifically the release of the song Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus in 1979 is most often referred to as the origin of the goth subculture. By the early 1980s, goth rock is firmly its own subgenre of post-punk, and the goths are gathering at clubs in London like the Batcave, and I want a Batcave. But I want to go to the Batcave in the 80s. I want to go to the Batcave when the goths were there in the 80s.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I want to do with my... Well, I've always said that what I want to do with my time machine is go to a Nirvana concert. But like early Nirvana. Yeah.
I'd go to the 70s and just see Jim Morrison be sexy.
Yeah. I recently won a week of one of me and Aubrey's music leagues with the Cure song.
Yay.
Oh, I guess I didn't know the Art Garfunkel song won, but I got second. I think I'm winning the league right now. I couldn't find anything definitive about who originally deemed this subculture the goths, but a lot of people think it came from how the British music press described these bands, and it's also been attributed to an interview given by the manager of Joy Division, who described the band's sound as goth dance music.
Well, because goth is also like a literary movement, right?
Right. It's certainly pulling from the gothic movement because it's sharing similar interests. Mm-hmm. And that's like why like Bela Lugosi's Dead is the thing that kicks off this section of the goths, mm-hmm. is because of the relationship to Bela Lugosi and you know the gothic artists of the past. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to note that what set goths apart from punks is that goth is a more introspective aesthetic, and additionally is a much darker aesthetic, and both the music and the fashion often include themes of horror, romanticism, and tragedy. Again, the link to like literary movements. The goths are much more entrenched in like theatrical costume and makeup than the punks were, and I mean theatrical in the sense of like theater. There's more of the sense of like drama with the goths than with the punks.
Punk is like fuck you, and goth is like fuck me.
Well, I would actually argue that goth is like fuck everything, and emo is fuck me.
That's a great distinction.
Yeah. Goth emerged around the same time from the punk rock scene in California, but it was independent of the British movement. So we have it emerging in the UK and in California at sort of the same time, but independently of one another. And the peak of goth culture is considered to have happened in the 1980s. And then there's a sort of debate within the community about whether goth is dead or not. And a lot of people consider, to Aubrey's point earlier, that the way it has evolved to mean that it is dead. Goth subculture, if you do think it still really exists, remains largely an underground movement / culture. However, there is a lot of examples of like goth-friendly media that uses the goth aesthetic, but for a larger audience. Some examples, like I mentioned, we have Abby from NCIS and Lydia Dietz. We have Wednesday. We had the Addams Family revival in general in the 90s. that like definitely comes out of this interest in the goth. People often point to The Matrix as like an example of like a goth friendly movie because of the aesthetic and like what it's about.
But I guess that's the thing. If part of what's inherent to goth is like an othering, then to have something have any goth elements in the mainstream, I would think would be antithetical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's and that's kind of true of like all subcultures is when they become mainstream or commercial. This was a thing that people were really frustrated by Nirvana for the mainstreamification of grunge. Like people were very frustrated by how big that band got because they were like, no, this is our thing, and now it's everyone's thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that like we see that a lot with this like this tension with subcultures where like you actually don't want it to get too popular because when it gets too popular it dilutes the thing that made it special, because you lose, like to go back to Hodkinson's 4 things, when there's more people involved in a thing, you lose things like commitment and autonomy. You lose control of the thing when more people are involved, so you can't be as autonomous anymore. The commitment, there's a like the way is like, you know, it's like goth is not just like a way that you dress, it's like a lifestyle, and so it's like the commitment is going to be lower and it's not going to be consistently distinctive if it's mainstream. You're not set apart from the mainstream if it's mainstream.
Unfortunately, there is a great South Park episode that really gets into this with
I love the goth kids in South Park.
Do you know the episode where it's the goth kids from South Park, but then this is around the Twilight time, and it's basically there's a new little faction of Twilight kids, and then everyone thinks the goth kids are Twilight kids,
yes,
and then the goth kids get really mad about it.
Yes.
It's basically that. That's what we're describing.
That is literally exactly what we're describing. So these characters in movies that I name establish a template for like future sort of like goth girl characters: dark clothes, morbid humor, and outsider status. So a quick rundown of who some of those people who I've named so far are. Abby from NCIS is a goth forensic scientist known for black pigtails, spiked accessories, and upbeat personality. Aubrey, did you ever watch NCIS?
No, but I like her vibe.
I think you would like the characters on NCIS in general. But so something I really like about Abby is that she's really cheerful. And I think that that's an important thing about goth folks and the difference between goth and emo. Goth people aren't like notoriously sad and depressed the way that emo people are, hence why emo derives from emotional. So I think that like that was a very cool thing that they did to have Abby be goth, but also this really cheerful, bubbly person. Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice is a teen photographer who sees ghosts. She dresses in black lace and expresses morbid observations about life and death. Beetlejuice plans on marrying her so he can return to the world of the living. So here's a fun fact about me. I had not seen Beetlejuice before seeing Beetlejuice 2, which I did not like. And
I don't like Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah, you don't?
I don't. I think the plot of it is actually very convoluted, and I just don't think it's actually that entertaining.
I have to say I still haven't seen it. I saw Beetlejuice 2 in theaters with friends for a friend's birthday, and I didn't like it, and so I've not sought out watching Beetlejuice. I can't believe that the plot of Beetlejuice is that Beetlejuice is trying to marry a teenager so that he can be a person again, and that everyone's just sort of chill with that.
Beetlejuice, like the original Beetlejuice movie, you would think the plot would be pretty straightforward to explain, but then every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, but then there's this plot with this guy who's like the boss guy, and then there's other stuff going on here, and then why are they in like the desert for this part? Like, I find it just very convoluted. I like the music in it. I think the Beetlejuice character is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I just don't really like the movie overall. And I know that it's very special to a lot of people. Yeah. It's just not my bag. To be honest, Tim Burton in general is not really my bag.
I don't know. I like Tim Burton. What Tim Burton movies do I like? Like I said, I did not enjoy Beetlejuice for the reason that is also how I felt about that movie.
I think Edward Scissorhands is okay.
I like Edward Scissorhands.
Again, I feel similarly with Beetlejuice.
And I like Big Fish.
All right. Everybody gets one. Big Fish is incredible.
And I like Corpse Bride. I like his Sweeney Todd adaptation.
Oh, I do like Sweeney Todd. I think the stuff he was doing from like 2003 honestly to 2010, I would say I enjoy.
Oh, and I liked Sleepy Hollow. I was actually surprised by how gory it actually was.
Oh, and you know what? I have to take back everything I said, guys. Unironically, I love the movie Mars Attacks.
Oh, I like Mars Attacks too.
I love that movie. And I think my biggest criticism of Tim Burton is that because Mars Attacks was such a flop, he never went that camp ever again.
Yeah.
And I so badly wish that he would just go camp. And I think my issue with is, like, as Tim Burton has made movies since, like, post-2010, I think they've become increasingly less camp and have taken on a more serious tone. Like, I thought the movie Big Eyes was fine, but it's so grounded. And I think when I like Tim Burton's movies, it's when he really leans into the fantasy of it all.
Yeah, I would agree. And
also, I should say, I think he's, like, bad. I'm sure there's stuff, I feel like that's,
he's,
a
famously
thing.
Racist.
Yeah, he's like horrible. And again, like, I can tell, like, Tim Burton is somebody who was part of, like, the goth subculture at some point in his, like, youth. Yeah. And he took a lot of the themes and things that he enjoyed into his filmmaking. And it is one of those things where it's like, as you become more famous and well known, you're sort of like killing that thing that you found really special, but it's like you're kind of giving it to everyone, and I get that that's also probably rewarding, but there's a cost associated with it. I don't know, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah. And then the last person who I've sort of mentioned in this vein is Wednesday Addams, who is the deadpan Addams Family daughter with braided hair and a fascination with the macabre. Mostly when we're talking
Morticia.
About what?
You gotta talk about Morticia.
Oh.
You can't talk about Wednesday without, because to me, Wednesday is not the goth baddie. Morticia is.
Yes, but in the context of the other characters I'm going to talk about, Wednesday is much closer to the other, like, teen girl ones than Morticia is. Morticia's like goth Jessica Rabbit, like, she's so hot.
She's bad as hell. My goal is just to be a Morticia Addams type.
Yeah. Well, and you married a Gomez Addams type.
I know, exactly. Yeah. All I have to do is just
They're just wearing like floor length black gowns all the time and chopping off the heads of flowers.
I'm there. I'm there.
And so when I'm talking about Wednesday in these episodes, I'm mostly talking about her in the context of the 90s movies, but even more so in the new TV show. I think Jenna Ortega playing Wednesday has sort of taken her from, like, spooky goth teen into, like, people want to kiss her a lot more now because it's Jenna Ortega.
That's just wild to me. This is where I know that I'm getting old, because I look at Jenna Ortega and I see a child.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I have such, like, this, like, split with her where it's like, I agree, because she's, she's 22, I think, and so it's like, I'm like, that's a baby, but then also I'm like, let my girl play an adult. Stop making her play children and everything. Let her play a freaking adult.
Yeah.
So when the mainstream media noticed these, like, dramatic visuals of the goth aesthetic, black clothes, dramatic makeup, Victorian and fetish influences, it often grabbed the look while leaving behind the culture. I have a big issue with the way that Tim Burton has talked about that, like, people of color don't fit his aesthetic, when, like, the whole thing with goths that they're a very welcoming community, and so it's a little crazy to be like, yeah, but, like, no black people though.
Also, guys, if you grew up in a rural town and were part of your local emo community like I was, you know that you always had kids of color who were in your little group.
Yeah.
It'd be like that.
Right. And so to be like, oh, this doesn't fit my aesthetic is incorrect. Is patently incorrect. In a very, like, two things can be true though moment, I do want to recognize that, like, the goth community is not immune from racism. If you go on the r/goths subreddit, there's tons of questions along the lines of, like, can I be black and goth? Is goth only for white people? Can I be a Latino goth? I think when we look at subculture roots of it being something from England and the US, like, I think that can be part of where that conception comes from. And also just, like, white people are racist sometimes. And So there definitely is racism within the goth community, and even though the ethos of the community is to be very accepting, that doesn't negate, the experiences of Black and brown goths who have faced racism in goth spaces. I was doing a lot of reading about this in the subreddit where I love to go, and it was really interesting, reading some of the experiences of Black and brown goth people. And I think that the thing that I ultimately, think about is that the racism is just pervasive through all parts of culture. But it was really cool to read a lot about specifically how the goth scene in Latin American countries has sort of continued to thrive. You see a lot of really cool hard rock bands that are flourishing in Latina countries. So I stand by the thing that Tim Burton being Black people don't fit with a goth aesthetic is insane. I mean, he says it's his aesthetic, but whatever. Also, it comes from somewhere. It comes from the fact that there is racism amongst white goths, but that's not a value of the subculture, and the subculture is a inclusive place. You also see this discourse about fat goths, it seems like goth is only for skinny people. And again, I think that that's not true, but it is just racism exists in all places, fat phobia exists in all places, and something cannot be a value of the value of the subculture can be to be inclusive, and you can still have racists and people who are shitty to fat people in those spaces as well. Also, that's the extreme version of it, but there's also this just not actually digging deep into the actual what the community was actually interested in, and just being making someone wear dark clothes and talk in a monotone voice.
Are we gonna get into also because I feel this also reminds me of the Columbine shooters, and no, well, because that was the whole thing with the Columbine shooters, is people were they're part of that evil goth group, and they're it put a lot of flame on the subculture, and I think that that's part of what diluted a lot of goth stuff in the 90s, was if you were to wear dark clothes and a trench coat and boots, people thought you were going to be a school shooter.
I guess the reason that I did not originally intend on talking about this, but thank you for bringing it up, is because I'm mostly focused on girls here.
Yeah.
And Eric, Harrison, Dylan, Klibbled are boys.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, and so film and TV executives realized that black lipstick and a sardonic quip could instantly signal rebellious outsider. Instead of exploring the music or politics that define goth, they repackaged it into characters who functioned as quick archetypes: the mysterious love interest, the spooky best friend, or the sexy villain. Think about how Lydia Dietz and Wednesday Addams became shorthand for morbid teen without any real engagement within either of those characters in goth music or the philosophy of the goths. I think another thing I like, because you brought up Morticia, now I'm thinking about Morticia and Gomez. I think the thing that's great about them as symbols of goths is that they are in this very loving, affectionate relationship and are very happy people. They're not cheerful, but they're very happy. And I think that I really appreciate that about that relationship and those characters in general, is that they have this very much this vivre for life, this zest, and it's not just everything's sad and dark.
Yeah.
So writers and animators cherry-picked visual cues, fishnets, heavy eyeliner, black and green color palettes, and used them as personality stand-ins. A character could appear deep or alternative without ever revealing what she actually listened to, read, or believed. The result is a flattening, and we've been kind of talking about this the whole episode so far. Instead of a complex individual who might care about art, politics, or queer community, we get a one-note spooky girl whose darkness doesn't actually go that deep. And then because that's the mainstream depiction of the goth subculture, it flattens the subculture alongside of it.
Right, it's a quick stereotype. It's a way to be I'm thinking of the movie Urban Legend, where the main character has a goth roommate. It's as soon as you see that character, it's okay, she's weird.
Yes, exactly. So because the goth aesthetic is both eye-catching and easy to merchandise, think your Hot Topic tees, the Monster High dolls, Halloween specials of every TV show, studios could sell a safe rebellion. Characters looked edgy but still fit a PG or teen-friendly narrative. And perhaps, to be controversial yet also brave, maybe a little bit, This is where the 2000s emo culture and aesthetic on Tumblr came from. And I can say that because I was in the trenches. I thought all those boys were hot with their lip piercings. I bought an Asking Alexandria shirt from Hot Topic. And I am separating this out from early emo in the 90s. And I'm specifically speaking about what was going on Tumblr in the 2000s.
I mean, you got the Tumblr, you got, I mean, I think even pre-Tumblr, you've got like
MySpace.
Quizilla, very big MySpace. Like, I mean, who didn't want a boy who had the like
Swoopy
deep
bangs.
bang and then the snake bite piercings?
Yeah. One of their names is Alex something, and I can never think of what his last name is, but I know his first name was Alex, and I can like picture him in my head.
Yeah.
Because he was all over Tumblr.
Yeah.
And so this simplification set the stage for the goth girlfriend fantasy. Viewers project depth and mystery onto a character who might not actually have those things inherently. And often this turns a vibrant, real-world subculture into an aesthetic shortcut for someone who is hot but different. And I fear that the idea of hot and different is the thing that I feel has led to me often feeling a distinct difference in how interested men are in me who see me or hear me talk about my interests versus when they realize I'm a complicated, fully realized person. And this is, of course, a problem for many women across, like, this is just like a gender issue, but we're talking about me and my problems today, okay?
And this is why you are a non-binary person, but you have been socialized as a woman.
Yeah.
And this is the she of the she they.
This is the she of the she they. Well, but it's you know what's actually true though is it's a little bit of both though, because I think that the thing that like I have often found, because I don't present very like besides literally right now, I don't present very androgynously normally. Mm-hmm. And it's that I think that's also part of it, is that there's like something like, oh, like because you also hear like I want a bisexual girlfriend, and it's like I think that like the idea of like a bi alt girl is like a stereotyping thing, and my gender does play into that, because then I'm not like I went on a date recently where the guy asked me why I don't shave my legs, and I was like, because I don't want to, and he wasn't saying it in a bad way. He was like it's like a fuck the patriarchy thing, and I was like, no, it's an I'm lazy thing, and I don't need that. Like it's not affirming in either direction for me. Mm-hmm. So it's just like I don't really care. But it's like I think that the gender of it all then gets into a depth that they're not interested in.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a thing that I've experienced as like a bisexual woman where it's sexy to think about, but they don't actually want to engage with it. And so basically they can just pretend you're straight cis.
Right. Exactly.
You know, it's not visible enough that they can't just ignore it when it's convenient.
Other friends who are femme presenting non-binary people, we talk about this a lot, about like how it's like I don't really want to be someone's girlfriend, but I know a lot of the men who I have dated would not want to refer to me as a partner, and that's part of the problem. I haven't dated anyone nice is the whole problem. That's not true. There was one was nice.
You've had a nice
I dated one nice person. Yeah, but in any case, so we'll talk more about me in a little bit. But first let's preview exactly these like cartoon characters that I want to get into talking about.
Us an hour into recording.
We did a whole preview on what goth subculture is. We've been on topic, okay? Okay, all right. We're tangenting with a purpose today. So the 90s and 2000s were a big cartoon boom in general. Me and Aubrey grew up at the best time if you wanted to watch a bunch of cartoons on TV, because there were a million of them. We were actually having a conversation recently about how like kids media has sort of gone away, and like specifically media for like 9 to 13-year-olds. And like everything I'm going to talk about is like is kind of media for that age group.
Yeah, because now if you're in that age range, you're just watching YouTube.
Right. So media for kids/teens grabs goth aesthetics as shorthands for alternative but cool. We have characters like Sam Manson, Gwen from Total Drama Island, and the Hex Girls. Goth in this context is not goth in the actual subculture context. It is just sort of a signifier for someone who isn't the perky cheerleader character, but is still attractive. So context on the three people I just named, or it's really 6 people, but the 3 groups I just named. So Sam Manson in Danny Phantom is an outspoken goth teen eco-activist and Danny's best friend. Gwen from Total Drama Island is an art student with teal highlights, black clothing, and dry humor competing on a reality TV show. And the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo are an all-female eco-goth band, Thorn, Dusk, and Luna, performing witchy songs and promoting environmentalism. Aubrey, did you have a favorite Hex Girl growing up?
Let me pull them up. I mean, I think it was probably just the main girl.
Thorn.
But
I was obsessed with Thorn, as I think is kind of obvious from the way that I look. I wanted to look like her when I was little.
I really liked Thorn. I mean, I really like them all, honestly.
I do too. I love the Hex Girls. I have Funko Pops of the Hex Girls.
That's very cute. I always liked the blonde one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was always a little bit slept on because I also just love the idea of like a blonde goth girl. I think it's really fun and cute. I also liked the redheaded one. I think probably I was the most attracted to Thorn. But honestly, what's the redhead one?
That is Luna.
I always really liked Luna too.
Yeah. So Dusk is the blonde one. And then Thorn, who's the main one, is and then Luna is the redheaded one.
I like them all. I think the thing with me is I always really wanted to embody a like goth aesthetic, but I have curly hair. And that I feel was always a barrier for me because the goth girl look is like the straight black hair. So I think I like depictions of like textured goth hair.
Yeah. So we often see these characters standing as like a foil to a girly pop character. You have Raven and Starfire in the Teen Titans cartoons, Gwen and Lindsay in Total Drama Island, Candace and Vanessa and Phineas and Ferb. Some quick on those goth girls. So Raven from Teen Titans is a human-demon hybrid originating from the parallel dimension of Azarath, and she is one of the 5 founding members of Teen Titans. She's reserved, monotone, and cloaked in a dark robe. And Vanessa Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb is the smart, sardonic teen daughter of mad scientist Dr. Doofenshmirtz. She isn't really, like, goth to me, but she does wear all black and has a similar attitude to like Sam or Gwen. So why cartoons? Why are there so many goth girls in cartoons? I think that part of it is that the stylized character design made the goth girl visually pop. The pale green skin versus black hair of Shego, the big chunky boots they give Sam Manson, Gwen's, very stark blue and black hair. To intro Shego from Kim Possible is a villain, an ex-hero now assisting Dr. Draken. She is skilled in martial arts and wears a black and green combat suit. We talked about recently that obviously Shego is hot and that me and Aubrey also think that Dr. Draken is hot.
Yes.
That's important. It's important it has to be said.
Yes, throuple.
I feel like he is much older than her.
Don't think about it too much.
Okay, I won't. I'll turn my brain off for a second. I'd also note that I'm sort of more focusing on the cool girl archetype here versus the weird girl archetype, though I think they both have a place in this conversation to draw out the difference of what I'm talking about. So the cool girl, she's aloof, stylish, and untouchably confident. Think Shego, Sam Manson, Gwen. They're composed, sarcastic, often smarter than everyone else. The audience effect of that is viewers, especially teens, can admire or crush on her. She becomes a safe object of desire. Her difference is sexy, not threatening. She validates being different while staying aspirational and cool. To talk about Sam Manson here for a case study in this, so in Danny Phantom, Sam isn't just the goth best friend. She's a committed vegetarian and environmental activist. In the very first episode of the show, called Mystery Meat, Sam pushes the school towards a vegetarian menu, setting up her identity as someone who questions conformity and defends her values, even when unpopular. She often challenges consumerism, corporate pollution, and animal testing, aligning with real-world eco-activist ideals rather than just looking edgy. So Sam's goth look draws viewers in. I mean, that's the whole aesthetic of Danny Phantom in general, but her activism gives her narrative depth. Her eco stance is a form of empowerment, touching on the relationship between punk and goth subcultures and political activism. Yet, if you've never seen Danny Phantom and you just know who Sam Manson is from her like being a hot girl on the internet, because she sort of is in this category or not, all of that complexity, that the like political bent of that character, it's gone. You don't know about it if you haven't seen the show.
Yeah, I think that because Danny Phantom, the show's inherent premise is sort of supernatural.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense that they wanted an archetype for the female like lead in it to have kind of a spooky element, especially because Danny as like a main character is pretty plain.
Yeah.
So being able to have that character makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I'm just thinking about the ways where goth characters are sort of inserted in and like what purpose they serve. And I also think with animation, it, like you're saying, I think it's a really easy archetype to grasp onto.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have Sam Manson be a goth girl, like, what do you make? Like, it's
Right.
the classic, what does a woman do? What
Right.
does a woman talk like?
And that's when I was doing a lot of reading on this. The thing that kept coming up is it's like making someone belong to a certain subculture in a show or TV means that you don't have to work as hard to actually give them a personality, because
character writes itself.
Right. You've created these signifiers that exist for the audience, and you know, you don't have to get into what actually like drew them to being goth. Was it the music? Was it whatever? You just now have told the audience, well, this is a goth girl. So
Well, it's like having a character who's a nerd, right?
Right.
Like having a nerd character, you don't have to question, oh, I wonder why they're so studious or why they're acting this way. You just know this is a nerd. They really like, studying and chess or whatever nerdy stuff is.
yeah. I also think that people really focus on the romance element between Sam and Danny, which like makes sense, but I also think people don't realize that she's not his girlfriend for most of the show. I think people think that she is his girlfriend. Like, so many times when I was looking online about stuff, she was referred to as Danny Phantom's girlfriend. And they are best friends with a slow burn romantic tension and obvious mutual crushes on each other. And in the final episode of the whole show, they kiss and they become a couple. But that happens in the last episode of the show. So for most of the show, they are not together. And the will they won't they is like a huge portion of the show. But it's just one of those things that like the way that like I think if you have not watched Danny Phantom, your perception of that character is like Danny Phantom's hot goth girlfriend and not what she is in the show, which is his like very like activist-y best friend.
Right.
Yeah. So Sam's activism provides a concrete example of how media often does give goth-coded characters interiority and a social purpose, but fandom and merchandising and Reddit.com often still just spotlight her as a hot goth girl, want to kiss her. That's sort of like the cool girl. Then we have the weird girl. She leans into awkwardness or eccentricity rather than a sleek style. Here you would, I would say examples of this are like Lydia Dietz, Wednesday. Raven from Teen Titans has shades of both the cool girl and the weird girl. Enid from Ghost World. And I'd also argue like Ali Sheedy's character from The Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I think another one I think of is like, honestly, probably like Janice Ian from Mean Girls.
Yes, totally, absolutely. So her personality is quirky or unsettling. She talks to ghosts, collects oddities, cracks morbid jokes. Comedy often comes from her unsettling the normal world around her. The audience effect is she's relatable to kids who feel awkward or misunderstood. She signals that being too much or too weird can be a superpower. She can still be beloved, but she isn't presented primarily as a heartthrob. Like, the cool girls are presented as like people who other people on the show want to kiss. They are kissable characters. That is not usually true of the weird girl archetype. That is not to say that people don't want to kiss her. I mean, poor Winona Ryder, because of the Lydia of it all, literally was being harassed by men her entire young life. And now men also go crazy for Jenna Ortega. And so, like, the weird girl can still be a character that people are attracted to, but that's not the way that she is written.
It's like the informed attractiveness.
Correct.
Right? Like, I mean, I think even Sam Manson and Danny Phantom is probably meant to be more of the weird girl than the cool girl, because you have her sort of foil of Paulina and Danny Phantom, who's like the cool, hot girl. And then Sam is someone who's not that.
So
what?
Do I want to push back on that?
No, I mean, feel free. I mean,
well,
that's just...
I think the distinction I would give is that I feel similarly with like how Gwen is portrayed in Total Drama Island, which is like there is an element of like people are still attracted to them, but they are like the foil of like a hot, cool blonde girl still.
See, I think Gwen is definitely cool girl. I think Sam gets into weird girl in the sense that in the canon of Danny Phantom, at least from what I can remember, her sort of activist behaviors are sort of othered by other characters.
Oh, totally.
Whereas Gwen in Total Drama Island, I feel like people are instantly like, oh, like Gwen is really cool and attractive and they like being around her, and she doesn't have like weird goth hobbies, right? Like she doesn't do like taxidermy or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so maybe Sam could get placed more in the same category as like a Raven, where there's a little bit of both going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this sort of brings us into, we've talked about what goth is in general, we've talked about the goth girl trope in media in general, and now is sort of our last section for today. I would love to dig into this goth girlfriend thing, and perhaps specifically the big titty goth girlfriend thing. Preview for this section, we're going to talk about porn. So one of my very good friends, love him to death, has a shirt that says, "If you look like this, hit me up," with pictures of Raven, Gwen, Sam, and Shego on it. And I'll call him out. I don't think he's ever actually dated an alt or goth girl. And I think that's part of this. The fantasy of a hot goth girl versus who men actually end up committing to. So I think there's a sort of fantasy of being chosen by the mysterious outsider girl. I think about like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Scott Pilgrim dates 2 cool women and 1 cool girl, a reminder that Knives Chow is 17 and he is 23 in that movie. And I think Knives is interesting because I think she sort of fits into the weird girl trope, but that's also because we're seeing her through Scott's eyes in many ways. And she's a child. They're already dating at the beginning of the movie, and I think that gets into the disillusionment men can experience in dating alt girls and dating in general, but more on that later.
Well, this is why I always see memes where it's like, you know, a sort of variant of what you're talking about, where it's a picture of like hot goth girl with big titties, and it's something to the effect of like, you know, a girl like this will ruin your life, you know, like girls like this are crazy is essentially like the bottom line of memes like that, where I think there's this desire of like, I want to be with a hot goth girl, but if I'm with her, oh, she's gonna run through me, and she's gonna destroy me and change my whole life. And then actually what you experience is you meet a hot goth woman, and she has feelings and emotions.
Right. She's a person. To go back to the thing that I was talking about in the M&M's episode, you gotta treat women like they're people. Yeah. Oh, I tried desperately to find a couple of tweets I saw online recently that was someone posting, how did Scott Pilgrim pull these girls with photos of Knives, Ramona, and Envy Adams? The reply tweet was like, have you seen some of the guys you all date? And I was like, clocked.
Michael Cera dated Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
Like,
who's a weird girl.
Yeah, I think Aubrey Plaza is the best real life example of this that we have. Yeah. But she's also incredibly hot.
Oh, she's beautiful. She's weird.
Yeah.
And people like, what's interesting with her is that it's like, I think that people weren't that interested in her physically until she was like in her 30s.
Yeah.
She like when she was in her early career, she was not cast as like a hot woman ever. And I feel like she was just like the weird girl in a lot of stuff. And then it feels like really since she like turned 30, people have been like, oh my God, literally the most beautiful woman in the world.
Well, I think a lot of like millennial men had crushes on her watching her in Parks and Rec, where her character was not, you know, April Ludgate was not like a sexualized character, but she was just like the cool, she was the cool weird girl.
She had 2 boyfriends.
And then coming out of Parks and Rec, like, you know, projects that she was choosing, I think people were realizing, oh, like people think that she's really hot, and let's lean into that.
Totally. So, Ramona Flowers is going to come up again later, so just a quick thing on her if you haven't seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So
is
Ramona
she a
Flowers,
goth girl?
Oh, she's not a goth girl, but she's an alt girl, and so, you know, she is the bane of my existence personally. Like,
I feel like this is also getting into like a manic pixie dream girl type too.
Oh, that's coming. Don't worry, we got a whole section on Manic Pixie Dream Girls that we'll either get to today or next week.
I feel like Manic Pixie Dream Girls are their own series, to be
honest. Yeah. Well, do you want me to, scrolling down. We'll probably talk more about Manic Pixie Dream Girls in another episode throughout the podcast. So yeah, we will have a whole different episode.
Okay. This is why I choose not to look at scripts before we record, because we get organic moments like this.
So Ramona Flowers is a delivery girl who constantly changes her hair color. Sorry, that's not the way I wrote it, and the way that I wrote it was much better. Ramona Flowers from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a delivery girl with constantly changing hair color and 7 evil exes who Scott Pilgrim must defeat in order to date her. I love the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I do think the existence of Ramona Flowers has made every goth, alt, emo, scene, e-girl, like, it has made our lives harder. It has demonstrably made my life harder. I have been compared to her so many times, and it makes me want to go insane.
But she dyes hair, and then you dye hair too. There's almost like nobody saw how in the movie how Scott Pilgrim is actually kind of a shitty guy, and it was almost like that was part of the point.
Well, yes, we should just talk about Scott Pilgrim versus the World at some point too, because I also think like that's like the graphic novel series I think is very good, and then B, like the movie is crazy, and it's like Brie Larson's in that movie, Chris Evans is in that movie,
fucking Brandon Routh is in that movie.
Yeah. I
love Brandon Routh. Fuck it. Three-parter. Next episode, Scott Pilgrim.
So why do male gaze and teen fantasies latch onto these characters? And I kind of said this already, but it's accessible darkness.
Male gaze. Refer to them by their scientific name, twinks.
Oh, I'm talking about gaze, Gaze, not our homosexual friends. That's not what we're talking.
I support it.
That is not what we're talking about here. So, the male gaze and teen fantasies latch onto these characters because it's an accessible darkness without being threatening. I think a lot of people like the idea of a spooky little black cat girlfriend who's sort of a freak. They just don't like when that comes with a side of mental illness or even a side of boundaries and expectations.
I have unfortunately heard a man refer to BPD as the hot girl disease.
I have too.
Yeah.
I've heard this was like a big thing that was bad for me. So, I had a BPD diagnosis, a borderline personality diagnosis, before we found out it was autism. I'm like, it was autism the whole time. But it was really damaging, the way that like BPD gets portrayed in media, but then also like if you look it up on the internet, it's a lot of men being like, yeah, so you should fuck the shit out of a girl with BPD, but you can't date her because she'll be fucking crazy. And it was like, oh no. But that's okay because I don't have that anymore, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But now autistic girls are also getting fetishized, so it's fine. Not to get too deep into my own shit, even though I already have. I often get called cool and chill at the beginning of a relationship, situationship, or whatever. Aubrey, would you describe me as a chill person? No, I'm not chill. I'm not chill. I'm not chill. I am highly motivated. I am someone who, like, it takes a lot to get me annoyed or angry or upset with someone. Like, my bar for, like, being upset with someone is quite high. This can bring frustrations into relationships because I do put up with a lot, but there comes a point where I'm like, hey, I don't want to put up with this thing anymore. And then they're like, oh my God, you're setting a boundary? Ugh.
Am I chill?
I think you're chill.
I think I'm kind of chill too. I'm a huge hater, and I think I let it out a lot, but I think in general, I'm pretty chill.
I think I have very, like, chill dude bro vibes in a lot of ways, but, like, my actual, like, I mean, my Google Calendar looks insane. I have a million tabs open. I don't have, like, chill in that regard. I'm a planner. Planned a whole friggin' bar crawl last night.
I'm a planner too, but I think I have a very nice reaction to a lot of things. I do get stressed, of course, but I think in general I'm kind of like, yeah. Yeah.
So I'll just say that, like, I get called these things at the beginning of a relationship, and then as soon as I'm like, hey, I would love it if you blank, or I have a bad anxiety day. SpaghettiOs. I am no longer just the cool, chill, aloof girl who is also just there for fucking. So speaking of fucking, let's move into the somewhat recent internet meme of the big titty goth girl and how online culture codified desire for alt/goth women. So this was obviously born out of memes, Reddit, Tumblr. I got to go on the greatest website of all time, Know Your Meme. Not really. It's not really the greatest website of all time. We just do use it a lot for the show. A brief timeline. April 12th, 2014. Unshockingly, Tumblr's at ground zero of this whole thing. User GothStan posted a conversation titled Me and My Goth GF, in which they say, Aubrey, I'll be sending you some text to read in chat. You just need to read what's in quotation marks. I will read the in-between. So, Me and My Goth GF, in which they say,
BB, your hands are so cold.
To which their goth girlfriend replies,
That me soul.
Very Tumblr. On September 7th, 2016, Twitter user Sadie is on fire posted an Ed and Eddie image macro with the character Ed holding a sign with the sentence, looking for a goth GF. On February 12th, 2017, YouTuber Frank Jav Key tweeted,
My goth GF just turned into a bat and flew away into the night again!
On June 22nd, the Fuck I Want a Goth GF Facebook page was launched. On September 24th, the Big Titty Goth GF Memes Facebook page was launched. And on October 12th, 2017, I hate that I have to say this, the Senpai Waifu Facebook page posted the What's the Matter little fella image macro. If you don't know what that is, it's a meme format with the Cuphead character where the top one says, "What's the matter, little fella?" And then the bottom is some sort of thing that is the matter. So this one specifically had the bottom caption of, "Don't have a big titty goth girlfriend?"
All right, what was happening in politics that they were using this as a distraction?
In 2017?
Yeah.
We're in the first year of the Trump presidency.
All right, guys, tinfoil hat is on.
There's obviously so much more than this, and there's so many memes, but 2017 seems to be when this meme really took shape on the internet. I will also say, a lot of goth girl stuff in porn has been very popular in the past, 5 years, but really over the past year. Past year's been a big time for goth porn.
Well, I also think this is interesting, right? Because it is... in terms of beauty standard type stuff, it's goth girls who have huge titties, hourglass figures, still very much within beauty standards.
Yeah.
Whereas again, if you are somebody who was participating in the goth subculture, particularly if you were a little fatty like myself, that would have been a community that would have accepted you as you are because you were against what the cultural beauty standard was. Anyway.
Obviously, this goes back a long time. Suicide Girls was founded in 2001. Suicide Girls is an online community website that revolves around pinup photography models known as the Suicide Girls.
I haven't heard that name in years, dude. I used to be straight jorking
into Suicide Girls? Yeah. So the term Suicide Girl comes from Chuck Palahniuk. I can never say this motherfucker's last name. Chuck Palahniuk?
I always say just Palahniuk.
Okay.
Or Palahniuk.
Comes from good old Chucky's novel Survivor, which was published in 1999, in which a character talks about masturbating to the troubles of young girls who look up to him. Aubrey, please read this.
It's the same with these suicide girls calling me up. Most of them are so young, crying with their hair wet down in the rain at a public telephone. They call me to the rescue. Curled in a ball alone in bed for days. They call me Messiah. They call me Savior. They sniff and choke and tell me what I ask for in every little detail. It's so perfect some nights to hear them in the dark. The girl will just trust me. Phone in one hand, imagine my other hand is her.
Thought about throwing up again. They also claim the name describes girls who commit social suicide by breaking away from societal norms. And it's alt girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's anyone who sort of doesn't look like the norm, primarily alt punk goth girls.
Suicide Girls has to just be defunct now with the rise of OnlyFans, right?
Probably shouldn't look this up on my work, but alas, here we are. It's still there.
Yeah, I would be surprised because I would think that if you were doing content like that, you'd probably just make way more money with OF, but
probably.
Yeah.
Probably, but alas, some of these are just hot blonde girls, may I just say. This isn't an alt girl at all. That's just a hot blonde girl.
Back in my day.
What the fuck? That's she's an exception. Most of these other girls are pretty heavily tatted and that's also just a hot blonde girl. There's too many just regular hot blonde girls on here. Off my Suicide Girls website. Thank you very much. There's also Burning Angel is a porn site that was founded in 2002 in response to Suicide Girls. It was focused on hardcore scenes with a more explicitly punk aesthetic. Right now, there's a girl who goes by Big Titty Goth Egg who got extremely popular in the past few years. She does solo content. And then another girl who goes by Olive, spelled AWLIVV. And there's just been more and more popular porn that has to do with goth girls, goth stepsister, your girlfriend's goth friend, your goth coworker, etc. popping up.
We gotta get into the incest thing at some point. I know it's on our list, but we just casually dropped that. And
when I said goth stepsister.
Yeah, there's a whole... Because it's the second most popular porn category now?
It feels like when you go on any sort of porn site, it's actually, you know what I'll say? It is, I think this is decreasing. I've noticed a drop off in this because I think it became such a meme that literally for a while it felt like every single video had to have a stepmom, stepbro, stepsister, step cousin, step whatever in it. And so it's it feels like that is sort of moving away from that now, which I think is good. I think that's good. It's certainly like a current trend, and it's sort of no longer relegated to specific sites like Burning Angel producing A. It's like we see this across porn companies now. This meme emphasizes fetishization of alt/goth women. I'm back on the meme now. I'm not talking about porn anymore. The meme emphasizes fetishization of alt/goth women, hypersexualized versions of a once niche archetype, and there's real world impact here. This fetishizes women in subcultures, flattening them into a look or fantasy, and frankly, the widening on the umbrella of what goth girl means, as I just learned from going on Suicide Girls, means it's just a simple act of having tattoos or dyeing your hair can put you into this category, even if you yourself would not define yourself as emo, goth, or punk. Like, it's like now it's like you have a tattoo and everyone's like, goth girl, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Aubrey, it's been a while. But we're going back to Reddit, baby.
Oh, boy. I know mascots, I really wasn't going on Reddit all that much, or I just didn't find anything juicy on Reddit.
Well, I found a thread. This is from r/2x chromosomes, which is a subreddit for women's perspectives. So I'm gonna have Aubrey read the original post, and then I'm gonna read the top comment to it because I liked both of them, and I think we should read both of them.
All right. So this is a post on r/2x chromosomes by user xxy or YYXYR. Its title is "That Big Titty Goth GF meme online has done irreparable damage to my interactions with men." And the post goes, "The title is mostly a joke. I don't think that meme is all to blame for this, but I dress alternatively. I describe it as kinda a lazy, comfortable emo. Most people just call me goth. And I have 15 piercings, 13 of which are typically visible, and dyed hair. Men will literally talk to me and clearly show interest, or at least make it pretty obvious that they think I'm attractive, only to constantly say they don't like my snake bites or septum, or they don't like my green hair, and every time I wonder if they truly think I spent over $1,000 on decorating my body the way that I want, just to take it off for some random guy who I've known for at most a week. If you want a girl with less piercings and with her natural hair color, go talk to them. Preferably stop talking to me and don't bother any women until you've come to become less insufferable and won't point out perceived flaws in the appearance of women you talk to. My only theories as to why I'm approached like this is they like the idea of fixing me and making me normal, or they think I'm attractive but don't actually like the idea of going out with someone who looks like me. If any other alt girls have similar experiences, feel free to share."
And the top comment is from someone whose username is Bumblebee Queer, and they say, honestly, this is part of the reason I stopped dressing goth. I was a scene kid 10 years ago, and it evolved into an e-girl type style over time, especially when that kind of thing got popular. For a while, I thought it was awesome my style was becoming more mainstream. Then, I started to realize men saw me as a manic pixie dream girl or a dolly. As time went on, I realized I wasn't doing it for me anymore. There was a time where I enjoyed spending an hour on my makeup every day and carefully curating every outfit. After a while, I just didn't anymore. I've toned down my look a lot since then. My ex, who I was with for several years, threw a tantrum when I did this. He proclaimed I wasn't trying anymore and he was embarrassed to be seen with me. This was a guy who wore anime t-shirts and basketball shorts that didn't go together at nice restaurants. That gave me the ick pretty fucking quickly. Ladies who dress alternatively, you guys are absolutely killing it. I changed for myself. Keep rocking your styles and don't let anyone give you any flack for it. And that has 643 upvotes. And so, like, I really resonate specifically with that second comment. Like the idea of feeling like you're being fetishized for your appearance. And then like also the original poster, like I think that is also a thing that can happen for people who have any sort of alt fashion, not, and I don't mean alt in the like the way we're talking about it here, but like literally just not the norm, of like people being like, oh my God, I love it. And then they start dating them and they're like, what have you? I experience this with my body hair. I will often get like, oh, I love that you're confident enough to not shave your legs. And then it's like, what if you shave them? And it's like, well, then what the fuck?
Well, right. I mean, it's this idea of like, oh, I like something that is alternative or outside the norm. But like, usually I think this is coming from men who are themselves normies. And so they're like, I like the idea of being with an alt girl, but how can I take her home to my mom?
Right. Totally.
You know?
Totally.
Whereas, yeah. I don't know. I think about this with, like, me and my husband, who I would not call really alternative, but he's someone who really likes to dress in a particular way. He really takes a lot of care into his appearance. And I don't know. I also think it's, like, an insecurity thing where, like, a lot of men they want a woman who's attractive, but if she continues to be attractive while they're dating, then, oh my god, what if a better man comes along and sees how attractive she is and steals her out from under me?
Totally. I have to say here, this is sort of the last thing I want to talk about today, and then we'll get through the rest of this next time. So I love all the girly pops we've talked about so far. Specifically, Shego, Raven, Gwen, Thorne from the Hex Girls, Ember McLean, and Sam Manson. I haven't said who Ember McLean is. I realized I didn't do that. So Ember McLean, I believe, is in a single episode of Danny Phantom. She's
but her influence.
Oh my god, her influence. She is like a musician ghost. And she's just like she's got like robin's egg blue hair. She wears this like power. She's got a big guitar because she like plays music and it like hypnotizes people basically.
You should have teal highlights and dress up as Ember for Halloween.
She's on my list. Yeah, and so she was she was like. The fact that she was in one episode, and I feel like anyone who's ever seen Danny Phantom knows who Ember is kind of crazy.
Well, because also there was that shooting. That guy who was, like, obsessed with Ember from Danny Phantom, and then he, like, went out and, like, shot people.
Oh, I don't think I know about that.
The Eaton Township Wise Market shooting, which occurred June 8th, 2017, perpetuated by Randy Stair, who was obsessed with the character Ember McLean from the animated series Danny Phantom. He believed that committing the shooting would allow him to be reborn as a ghost character, because he was crazy. I'll send it to you. I'll send you the Wikipedia article on it. It's kind of interesting. Basically, he was just, like, super delusional and kind of believed that if he died, he would become a ghost and get to, like, be with her.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh. See, this is one of those moments where I'm like, well, yes, we need gun control and better mental health things in this country. But we need both of them. We need both of them. We need gun control and better mental health infrastructure in this country so that things like this don't happen. So these characters were all very important to young Mackenna.
I really threw you off with the shooting.
Yeah,
there.
And now I'm just...
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just thinking about gun violence. All of these characters were very important to young Mackenna in both a gay way and also a wow, I want to look like that way. I was like a cute little ballet then theater girl growing up, and I didn't start dyeing my hair and embracing a slightly more alt aesthetic until I started experimenting with it in early college, and then I think was really in the e-girl boat in late 2020, early 2021. But that largely was out of fear of being judged, and then during COVID / as an adult, I was like, fuck it, we ball, and started dyeing my hair, getting tattoos, etc. But like, these girls were always the ones who I gravitated towards, and I love them. I don't think many of these characters are inherently male gazy or designed for that purpose. Like, I see Shego get called male gazy a lot, which is specifically interesting to me because I feel like Kim Possible was so clearly being marketed towards girls, but maybe that's just my own impression on being a girl with brothers while Kim Possible was on air. I also just love Shego, and I think she's cool, and I always liked her growing up. But like the Hex Girls are also like a badass all-female rock band and care about the environment. Thorne is a Wiccan, and they don't really force romance plots on them, which I always appreciate. But like obviously like with like Gwen from Total Drama Island is a good example of someone who like is kind of intentionally male gazy. I also think they're all fucking hot. I wanted to be them and be with them. The true bisexual experience. And aside, this isn't really on theme, but I also loved Salem the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch as a kid, and I'd love to hear from any of our alt girl listeners if he was also a fave growing up.
Yes, and the cat / little boy in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
When you were also a little child. To be clear.
Yeah. So none of this is to say I think it's wrong to like these characters, find them attractive, etc. Brothers, I do. But I do just want to investigate what these tropes do to real life femme folks who look like these women, such as myself and the dear Reddit girlies who we heard from earlier.
Yeah, I think I had a similar trajectory when it came to my own style. I always also really enjoyed characters like this. I was really into like the soft grunge Tumblr aesthetic in the 2010s. I think I always wanted to present in a sort of alternative way. There were times in my adolescence where I was able to do that a little bit, but also like social, family, peer pressures, I think inhibited a lot of that until I was probably later in college. And then once I got to grad school really was when I was like, yeah, I actually just kind of like wearing black. I really want to kind of dress in a way that is like, I say academic. I really like wearing like white button-up shirts and black mini skirts and wearing my little boots. That's just like my vibe. It's been my vibe.
Was the office siren trend fun for you?
It is kind of. I mean, I think I'm always kind of office siren adjacent a little bit, to be honest. Just because I love like my dream outfit that I wish I could just wear every day is like black mini skirt, mock neck shirt, and boots. And that's just like that is my gender, is that outfit.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
With my little tattoos and just like feeling good about it.
Yeah. We were talking about like what the signs would be if like we suddenly came into a lot of money, and mine is that I would own a lot more clothing from fashion brand company. Like a lot more. But yeah, so I think that's probably where, just looking at time, like where I want to leave things for today. And then next time we'll talk about Part 3, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl connection, because I anticipated Aubrey's needs. Part 4 will be media evolution and self-awareness. And then we'll talk more about the real world implications of all of this. And there will be a classic Mackenna Goodrich 2-minute monologue at the closing. So lock in for that next week, because I've written something I'm real proud of.
Yes, brothers.
Yeah. Aubrey, any final thoughts for the day?
No, I think that
Great, I did it. We solved it. We solved the problem.
I mean, I encourage everyone to try to dress in a way that feels authentic and true to them. I think it can be difficult because right now there's so much noise with aesthetics that I think it's really hard to like pin down like what is actually real and authentic to me versus like a micro trend or whatever. Because for me, like, dark academia was a whole aesthetic trend for a minute. And I was sort of like, oh man, am I just really swept up in this trend right now? Or is this actually what's true to me? And it's just like, when I think of the through line of the kind of fashion I've always liked, the characters I've always been drawn to, I've realized that that is something that is authentic to me, regardless of what is in style or not. Like, if it becomes popular for everyone to start wearing neon colors tomorrow, I'm probably not gonna be rocking that, because that's just, like, not my vibe. And it's also, like, okay, if you're somebody who's like, oh, I'm into different, like, micro trends, but I also think as you get older, you take more care into thinking, like, what is, like, the style I want to cultivate? And, like,
totally.
You know, how do I want to present myself? Like, I've talked to some other people who are around my age in their late 20s and 30s, and they're sort of like, oh yeah, like, I don't really have, like, a sense of style. I'm just kind of, like, buying random stuff, and I'm never really satisfied with what I'm wearing. And I think that's kind of a sad place to be, because for me, I have a wardrobe full of clothes that, you know, I really like. I've been careful to curate that, and I do my makeup in a way that feels really nice and affirming and makes me feel good. And it's like every day I'm sort of like, this is the character of me that I get to customize, and I get to go out into the world and present myself in this way where people look at me and know, yeah, that's Aubrey. And I think that that's a really powerful thing, to figure out your personal style. It's meaningful for me. It might be meaningful for you too, or it might not, and it's fine if it's not.
Yeah. I think that's like part of like the central tension that like I'm sort of wanting to get at in this series, is this like thing for me, which is that as I found my personal style, the thing that like made me feel, you know, confident and all of that, it felt like as that happened, I then started getting different attention from specifically men. And so there's like this weird tension. And I think it's really described in that second comment from Reddit that we read about like, what does it mean when your personal style ends up getting you like attention that you don't want? And so I like, I think that's like the interesting question that I want to kind of explore here, because I'm not going to change how I dress. I like how I dress. I I love my pants. I love all my pants so much. We all know this. It's known. I love my pants. And it's like, I do. It's like, I also very intentionally pick things that I want to, either own or rent since I rent clothes.
My husband, when we met, his whole thing was dressing 70s. Like, he dressed like Fez from that 70s show. And he bought vintage clothes. And over time, again, he's seen, like, the proliferation of, like, 1970s culture get appropriated. And he's since kind of dropped it. But it's like, he would wear these tight bell bottoms and these little jackets and just, like, look like a cool 70s dude. And there would sometimes be, like, men who would mock him as he would walk by because they were intimidated and they were insecure of themselves. And that's a different kind of negative attention. But I think that it's a similar type of thing where watching someone be authentic to themselves is something that's very intimidating to people who are deeply insecure.
Yeah. You did use the word correctly, but there was something because of like how like most of the time when we talk about like appropriation, we're talking about like cultural appropriation. There is something very funny to me about like the 1970s culture being appropriated. The 1970s are a protected class. Not the 80s, though. You can appropriate that all you want.
They are being.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 20 year trend thing. Have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss? Send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.